The air inside the airport was thick with exhaustion and impatience. Families clustered near arrival gates. Suitcases rolled across the polished floor. Announcements echoed overhead. It was just another ordinary evening, until one moment turned the terminal into a stage of injustice. Sergeant David Cole had just stepped off a long flight, the weight of combat still etched into his posture. His fatigues were neat, his boots polished, his duffel heavy with the dust of deployment. After months overseas, he wasn't looking for attention. All he wanted was to get home, hug his mother, and breathe freely again. But life has a way of testing those who have already been tested enough. As David walked through baggage claim, a voice, sharp, commanding, cut through the crowd. "Hey, you, stop right there." Heads turned. A police officer in a crisp blue uniform strode toward him, hand resting on his holster. His gaze wasn't neutral. It was filled with suspicion. David paused, confused. "Is there a problem, officer?" The man's lips curled into a smirk. "We'll see. Show me some ID." Travelers slowed their steps, watching. Some reached for their phones, ready to record. David calmly reached into his pocket and handed over his military ID. The officer snatched it, glanced down, and scoffed. "This doesn't look real. What are you running here, a costume act?" David's jaw tightened. "That's a government-issued ID, sir. I just got off a deployment." But the officer didn't care. His voice grew louder, sharp enough for the crowd to hear. "Don't lie to me. You expect me to believe you're a U.S. soldier? You think putting on camouflage makes you somebody? I've seen enough fake heroes for one lifetime." Murmurs spread through the crowd. People exchanged uneasy looks. David remained calm, shoulders squared, but his voice held steady conviction. "If you'd like, you can call my commanding officer. He'll verify." The officer cut him off. "Quiet. Hands behind your back." Before David could speak again, cold steel handcuffs locked around his wrists. His duffel fell to the ground with a heavy thud. The soldier who had faced enemy fire overseas now stood humiliated in his own country, arrested like a common criminal. The terminal buzzed with shock. Someone whispered, "He's a soldier. Why are they treating him like this?" Another muttered, "This isn't right." But the officer ignored it all. He pulled David forward roughly, like prey caught in a trap. David's eyes lowered. He had faced worse. He knew injustice when it stared him in the face. But deep down, a part of him still hoped for something he hadn't seen in months. Mercy. And then it happened. From the crowd, a man emerged. His stride was steady, his presence commanding. The noise of the terminal seemed to hush as people recognized the polished stars gleaming on his shoulders. General Marcus Ellison, one of the most decorated officers in the U.S. Army. A man whose very name commanded respect across every branch of service. He had been on the same flight, and he had seen everything. "Officer," his voice boomed across the terminal, deep and thunderous. "Unhand my soldier. Now." The officer froze. His grip slackened on David's arm. His face drained of color as he turned, stammering. "Gee, General, I didn't realize." "You didn't realize?" Ellison's words cut sharper than any blade. He stepped forward, eyes locked on the officer. "What exactly didn't you realize? That this man, standing right here, has put his life on the line for his country? That he wears that uniform because he earned it?" The officer swallowed hard, sweat glistening on his forehead. "I just thought. You thought you saw an easy target." Ellison's voice rose. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "You thought you could treat him like a criminal. You thought you could humiliate him because you saw his skin before you saw his service." The officer fumbled with the cuffs, unlocking them with trembling hands. The metal clattered to the floor, echoing through the terminal. David rubbed his wrists, but his eyes weren't on the officer. They were on the general, the man who had spoken the truth he couldn't say for himself. The general turned to the crowd, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Every soldier deserves respect, no matter the color of his skin, no matter the prejudices of the world. When you dishonor one of us, you dishonor all of us." The terminal erupted in applause. People shouted words of support. Some cheered. Others called out justice. The officer stood frozen, head bowed in shame, as the general's words rang louder than the handcuffs had ever clinked. And then, Ellison leaned in closer, his voice low and sharp enough only for the officer to hear. "You just disrespected the United States Army. And I promise you, this won't be forgotten." The officer's lips trembled. There was nothing left to say. David straightened his uniform, lifting his head with dignity. For a moment, the humiliation he had endured seemed to wash away. The scars of injustice wouldn't disappear, but at least today, justice had spoken back. The general placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Let's go, soldier. You don't owe him another second of your time." And together, they walked through the terminal, leaving behind the echo of a powerful truth. Because sometimes the world needs to be reminded. Never mistake humility for weakness. Never confuse silence for submission. Because the underdog you mock today may be the hero who commands tomorrow. Hit the like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. See you in my next video.